This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you have arrived at the international airport of Creep Street.
That's right.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yes, we are so happy to have you here with us today.
Absolutely we are. Gosh, I am rootin' tootin' ready to get going on this. Of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. We're also on TikTok.
That's right.
And also on our Facebook, we have another forum called Citizens of the Milky Way, a Creep Street fan page where daily we like to interact with our listeners and post memes, funny stories. We always announce what our episode for that week is going to be a few days before it releases. So
that's right.
Want to get the inside skivvy, you just go on over there. Then, if once a week is just not enough.
It's not enough.
You hear that whisper in the air? There's someone calling your name, and it's called Patreon. That's right.
That's right.
All you got to do is go to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast for all sorts of goodies. We've got bonus episodes, movie reviews, movie commentaries, spoiler cast. Sometimes we just talk, short stories, all sorts of things. Just head on over there for all sorts of goodies. But good golly, I think I've rambled enough. I like to just cruise right through the opening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got a lead foot when it comes to getting to our stories. Now, last week we gave them gnomes.
We popped off with gnomes, big time.
Big time gnomes, and people are really enjoying it.
Yes, thank you for listening to the gnomes episode. We're so happy that you enjoyed hearing about those little freaks.
But this week we got something that is very spooky, but also kind of in line with what we do.
Yes.
We are performers, obviously, and this one kind of falls in that category. Very famously so. Even if you're not an actor yourself or a performer, you've probably heard about the subject of today's episode. Maureen, what are we talking about today?
Dylan, honestly, that's a great question, and I have the answer.
Okay, spill.
Today we will be talking about the Curse of Macbeth.
Ooh, that's right. We are paying a visit to the bard himself.
Shakespeare.
That's
Get
right.
ready, honey.
That is right. The famous William Shakespeare and his famous, perhaps infamous play, Macbeth.
Macbeth is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays for sure. It's either Macbeth or Romeo and Juliet.
I remember in the early days of lockdown, you and me, we lit some candles. It was dark. We made it real dark. And you and me together out loud read Macbeth together. And it was such a good time.
Yeah, it's such an amazing play. It has everything you want. It has ghosts. It has witches.
Ooh.
It has some decapitations.
I mean, it sounds like a Creep Street play.
It really is.
I mean, it truly is the most, like, if Shakespeare did a Halloween play.
It would be Macbeth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before we really get wet and wild here, which we're gonna get, don't you worry your pretty little friggin' head. Let me list off my sources here for this week. One was an article called The Curse of the Scottish Play by the Royal Shakespeare Company. Then I had The Curse of Macbeth. Is it more than superstition? At penguin.co.uk. Then we had Macbeth's Myriad of Misfortunes, the Scottish play still cursed after all these years, by Robert Ferrers at the Austin Chronicle. Then we also have another article called The Curse of the Play by Robert Ferrers at the Austin Chronicle. Then we have the Macbeth Curse at the Shakespeare Co., which was a YouTube video. And then we got the play itself from the man himself, Macbeth by William Shakespeare.
Okay, going right to the source.
Or to the dang source. And I think it would be fun if I read off a little bit of how the play starts.
Oh, please, please.
Now, these are 3 witches speaking, but I'm just going to read all of them. And here we go. When shall we 3 meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, that will be ere the set of sun. Where the place? Upon the heath, there to meet Macbeth. Come, grey Malkin, paddock calls, anon. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. So the play begins, Act 1, Scene 1 begins with these witches seeing when the next time they're going to meet and when they will meet Macbeth. They are prophesizing.
Wow, okay.
Yes. Now, the 16th century in Scotland had so many witch hunts. It was really kind of notorious, really. And this was really due to King James VI of Scotland, his just like obsession with witches and witchcraft and all that stuff.
Yes.
In 1589, when King James was sailing back to Scotland from Denmark with his wife Anne, he got in a very bad storm that caused the whole ship to nearly capsize and everyone to drown. And King James of Scotland blamed all of this happening on evil spells from witches, that they were the ones that conjured the storm. And it wasn't long after that, when he returned, that he ordered a witch hunt in the coastal town of North Berwick. He also wrote a book called Demonology, which was like all about witchcraft and just like a way for people to be able to persecute witches and find witches and things like that. But then King James of Scotland, you know what he did?
What?
He popped off and he became King James I of England as well.
King Jimmy the First?
Yep, in 1603. And the peeps were trying to get on his good side.
I bet.
They were trying to like show him that they were, you know, on the same page, ready to go, in with his interests and all that business. Christopher Marlowe, and for those of you who do not know, he was like a contemporary of Shakespeare. He wrote a lot of other fantastic plays, one of them called Dr. Faustus.
Yes.
And this was published in 1604, so right after King James became the King of England. And this had like a lot of witchcraft and devil stuff in that play as well. People just were really, really into this.
Oh, yeah.
This was like a big deal. So Shakespeare, he pops off as well. And he writes Macbeth in 1606. And, you know, he made it about witches and witchcraft and all of these things. And he also set it in King James's home turf, Scotland. So, as I said before, as we just read, the beginning of the play has these 3 witches prophesizing, and later on we have the witches casting spells.
Right, yes.
I'm going to do a little bit of a reading of that as well later on.
Oh, of course, cannot wait for that.
You got to. And I'm not a Shakespeare expert or really performer at all. I did some Shakespeare when I was in acting school, but that was years ago, and I didn't really do a ton of Shakespeare, so my apologies.
Yeah,
if you're a Shakespeare buff and I'm not really reading it in the correct, I think it's tetrameter. The witches speak in tetrameter or tetrameter, I think.
Oh, I see what you mean. The only time I've done Shakespeare was I did Much Ado About Nothing in high school.
Oh, nice.
Other than that, so it's not like I am an aficionado as well.
Right. But we're fans.
Of course.
Don't get us wrong. Come on. But so Shakespeare has these 3 witches in the play. And a lot of people think that these spells and everything that the witches are saying was taken from real spell work from real witches, and these were lifted from real black magic rituals. Now, there's a Dr. Kuhan who works at the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, and she says that she can't confirm the existence of black magic. However, she said, quote, "He'd have come across people who dabbled in herbal treatments and medicines. He would have been inspired by something."
Okay.
So, there you have it.
Okay.
Now, Dr. Kuhan also says the following, quote, "Book learning and science were misunderstood. People were suspicious of them. Very learned people were often called wizards. So opening a play with weird sisters casting a spell with horrible ingredients, eye of newt and toe of frog, it scared people." So people really believed in witchcraft and everything at this time.
Right.
It wasn't just like some people, the king believed in it, so everyone was kind of like, okay, I guess we'll believe in it too. People were really into it and afraid of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is part of the reason why people think that Macbeth is cursed. That these spells are really being said whenever Macbeth is performed, and so it's creating this curse. Also, some people think that real witches at the time were offended and upset at the portrayal of witches and their spells being stolen and all of that for the play Macbeth. So they cursed Macbeth then, and the curse has just lived on since then. And those of you who don't know, it's not just that doing Macbeth can cause you harm or can be cursed. Actually, just saying the name Macbeth in a theater is an absolute no-no.
Yes.
Big no-no.
Big no-no.
Even just today, someone asked me one of my castmates asked me what our next episode of Creep Street was while we were in the theater at Second City, and I had to say, it's about the curse of the Scottish play.
Oh my goodness. Who asked?
Janelle Chain. Shout out to Janelle if you're listening.
Absolutely.
Yes,
hello, Janelle.
we
Yeah.
love Janelle. And, when I wasn't saying it, I felt a little corny. I was like, oh, God, should I just friggin' say Macbeth? Should I just do it? But I was like, you know what? I've just done all of this research. I don't want to press my luck.
I mean, God, I got to get on a plane tomorrow.
Right.
Oh,
It's okay we're saying Macbeth and everything right now because we're not in a theater.
so it is okay to say it whenever you're not. Okay, that's good.
It's just when you're in a theater, you're not supposed to say Macbeth, but there is a remedy if you do say it, which we'll get to later.
Of course.
But you are allowed to say Macbeth if you're performing or rehearsing the play Macbeth.
Okay.
And you gotta say it,
Of course. I mean, that would be kind of a dick move.
It would be crazy if, it just, come on, you gotta make exceptions here, honey.
Yeah.
So the curse of Macbeth can come from you saying Macbeth in a theater or just from being in Macbeth. There's also a curse that can come along with that.
Oh boy.
Or being involved with a production. Which is hard because it is one of Shakespeare's best plays, one of his most popular plays.
Yes.
And it's done all the time because of this. Because it's really f***ing good.
It's really good.
And that's something that Dr. Kuhan says. She says, quote, "It tends to run longer than, say, Cymbeline. When you have more performances, it's statistically more likely that things will go wrong." And this is true.
Okay, I see what you mean.
That is something there. And it also is a little bit more of a dangerous show to do just in general. There's a lot of sword fights, a lot of dagger shit. These things happen. There's just more places for there to be mistakes.
Absolutely.
Dangerous, injury-inducing mistakes.
But as we will get into, there have been occurrences that have happened.
Oh, yeah.
That are so strange.
Oh, that are absolutely bizarre. And we're going to get into them right now.
Oh!
Now, John Aubrey, he was someone that supposedly knew some of the men that performed with Shakespeare back in, Shakespeare times, the late 1500s to the early 1600s.
Right, yes.
And he reported that a boy named Hal Burridge was set to play Lady Macbeth on the play's opening night on August 7th, 1606. But unfortunately and tragically, he was stricken with a sudden fever and died. And Shakespeare himself had to play the role of Lady Macbeth last minute.
Whoa. Talk about one hell of an understudy.
One hell of an understudy. Oh my God, that's like a nightmare. I literally have dreams about having to go in and do a show and not knowing the lines. Literally, I truly have nightmares about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But here's the dang deal. So it seems like that did not actually happen.
Oh, okay. It was debunked.
It was debunked, but it is a popular story that goes around.
Okay.
But a lot of these other stories have not been debunked and seem to be quite real.
Okay.
Now, apparently, for whatever reason, it seems like King James didn't really love Macbeth, which is weird because you think that he would.
Oh, okay.
So that's just kind of one weird thing. And so it wasn't really performed a lot, during Shakespeare's lifetime. The next time it was performed was about 5 years later. And the play is believed to have first been done outside of England in Amsterdam in 1672. And apparently, the actor running the company decided to show Macbeth's murder of King Duncan on stage rather than off stage, which is how it's usually done.
Right.
And he was playing Macbeth himself and apparently had an affair with the wife of the guy who was playing King Duncan.
Oh, God.
And there was a real issue with these two. And one night he brought a real dagger on stage and attacked the actor playing King Duncan for real. Now, apparently in London at about the same time, a real dagger or sword was used and resulted in the death of someone in the cast.
Wow, okay.
The Duke's men, who apparently were the only company licensed by King Charles II to perform Macbeth, they were performing the play in the early 1670s when actor Henry Harris, who was playing Macduff, accidentally ran his sword through the eye of the actor playing Macbeth and killed him.
Oh.
Isn't that so just like, oh God.
Oh my God.
And a revival of the play was done in November of 1703, and around that time, southern and central England were hit with the equivalent of a Category 2 hurricane, and it took down 2,000 chimneys in London and caused 1 million pounds of damage and killed 1,500 seamen. You gotta laugh.
Good golly.
Yes, and there's more. Now, this one is wild, and I don't really get it, I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
But it happened. Macbeth was being performed at the Astor Place Opera House on May 10th, 1849, when apparently a crowd of like 10,000 New Yorkers gathered to protest the appearance of British actor William Charles Macready, who was in like a nasty feud with American actor Edwin Forrest, who was also starring in a production of Macbeth nearby. There was a protest that was so large that the mayor had to call out the militia, and the protests escalated to a riot, and at least 22 people were killed, and 48 were wounded and injured hundreds.
Okay, all because there was a feud between two actors?
Yeah, two actors playing Macbeth.
So this is also kind of just stupid.
I mean, I just don't understand it.
Like, what? There must be more to that story.
Right, and I couldn't really find more. I'm sure there is more. If you guys know more, reach out to us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us on any of our socials. But yeah, it's just very weird. Now, on April 9th, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was aboard the River Queen on the Potomac River, and he was reading passages aloud of a play to his friends, and that play was Macbeth.
Yikes.
And the passages he read were when Duncan was assassinated, and within a week, Lincoln himself was assassinated.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
Mm-hmm. In 1882, on the closing night of one production of Macbeth, an actor named J.H. Barnes was in a scene with another actor named William Rignold when J.H. Barnes accidentally put a sword through Rignold's chest.
God almighty. I mean, I get accidents happen.
But why are they using, like, real weapons?
Yeah, it's so wild.
Yeah. Thankfully, a doctor was at the show, but this wound was very serious and could have been fatal.
Oh, so he lived?
He lived. A doctor was at the show and saved him.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Yeah. Now, there was a production at the Prince's Theater in 1926 when there was already a lot of stolen equipment, falling scenery, and costumes catching on fire when the actor playing Macbeth, Henry Ainley, had to leave the show because of nervous exhaustion. But his replacement, Hubert Carter, didn't have a lot of physical control, and he nearly actually strangled the woman playing Lady Macbeth, Sybil Thorndike, in the throne scene. Yikes.
Wow, okay. Good golly.
Yeah.
Like with his hands?
Yeah. In 1934, there was a production at the Old Vic, and the actor playing Macbeth, Malcolm Keane, suddenly lost his voice during an early performance and was replaced by an actor named Alistair Sim. But Alistair Sim developed a, quote, severe chill and had to be hospitalized. He was then replaced by an actor named Marius Goring, who filled in until another actor, John Laurie, could be brought in to take over the role. And all of this took place within a week.
Oh my God.
Yes. In 1936, a 20-year-old Orson Welles produced a production of Macbeth. He set it in 19th century Haiti, and he used a lot of voodoo and African and Haitian influences. And apparently, according to Orson Welles, the Herald Tribune critic Percy Hammond did not like the show, and an actor who was in the show named Abdul Asen approached Orson Welles about making Berry Berry on the offending journalist. And apparently, when Welles told him to go ahead, this critic then died just over a week later.
Wow.
Yeah, according to Orson Welles.
Okay, very interesting.
In 1937 at the Old Vic, a 30-year-old Laurence Olivier, if you don't know, often thought to be the best actor ever, he was preparing to play Macbeth when the director and the woman playing Lady Macduff were involved in a car accident on the way to the theater. Laurence Olivier caught a cold and lost his voice, which caused the show to be postponed, and the director was replaced by a new director named Tyrone Guthrie, who had just 3 days to get the show ready. During that time, a 25-pound stage weight crashed down from the flies, which is like really, really high up. The flies is like, how do I describe it? It's hard to describe. It's like this like area, almost like a floor that it like has slats in it.
Right.
Really, really high up above the stage. So a 25-pound weight fell from a really great height. So it's really bad. And it missed Olivier by inches.
Wow. Yeah, that would straight up, I mean, that would kill you. Kill you.
Oh, yeah.
Instantly.
No, there was the Old Vic's founder, Lillian Bayliss. She took ill and died of a heart attack right before the final dress rehearsal of the show. And then a portrait of her was hung up at the Old Vic. And when the next production of Macbeth was done at the Old Vic, 17 years later, the portrait of her that hung in the theater fell off the wall on opening night.
That's insane.
Isn't that weird?
So weird.
Yes.
Like what, I mean, just the sheer odds of it.
Oh my God, yeah. In 1940, Margaret Weber directed a production of the play, and she had appendicitis. The woman playing Lady Macbeth, Judith Anderson, was stricken with laryngitis, and Margaret Webster, the director of the play, had to fill in for her. And then just before the production was to be performed for the U.S. Army, she came down with an acute case of tonsillitis.
Damn. It seems like everyone's getting like these upper respiratory and like whether it's even just a cold or laryngitis, like there's all of these like upper body.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird. In 1942, there was a production that was headed by John Gielgud, and there were several deaths in the cast. The actor playing Duncan passed away, at least one of the Weird sisters passed away, and the costume and set designer John Minton committed suicide.
Wow. Okay.
In 1947, actor Harold Norman was stabbed in the sword fight scene that ends the play and died as a result of the wounds. His ghost is said to haunt the Coliseum Theater in Oldham, and apparently he shows up on Thursdays, the day he was killed.
Really? Okay.
In 1948, Diana Wynard, she was playing Lady Macbeth, or Lady M, at Stratford, and she decided to play the sleepwalking scene with her eyes closed for some fucking reason. And before a full audience, she walked off the stage and fell 15 feet. Some stages are like really high up, and this was one of those cases.
That's just like almost just dumb.
Yeah, that one is like, come on. But she was okay, and she was able to get up and finished the show.
But then you're just like fucking embarrassed.
Right, you're like, I just fucking fell because I closed my goddamn eyes. In 1953, Charlton Heston starred in a production in Bermuda.
Okay.
And first of all, he was badly injured in a motorcycle accident during rehearsals. And then on opening night, he was severely burned in his legs and groin area because the tights he was wearing were accidentally soaked in kerosene. Like, I don't really understand how that's possible, like how you accidentally do that.
Right. Did like kerosene fall on him right before the fire broke out or something? Like,
Yeah, I don't know, because then there was a fire, yeah, so I don't really know.
And he got hurt riding his hog around
that thick hog.
Bermuda. Good golly.
Yeah. I guess the wind that night was really strong, so when the dummy that was representing Lady Macbeth was thrown over the side to show her, jumping to her death, it was blown back onto the stage, and the smoke and flames from the torches carried by the soldiers were blown into the audience, and it just, created a huge panic.
And is that where he got burned, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I think so.
Just some embers fell on his kerosene-soaked crotch.
Yeah, yikes. Woof. In 1955, Laurence Olivier took the role again, and during the big fight with Macduff, he almost blinded fellow actor Keith Mitchell.
A lot of blinding.
Yeah.
A lot of blinding going on, I've realized.
Mm-hmm. On December 2nd, 1964, a fire burned down the Di Maria II National Theatre in Lisbon, Portugal, and at the time, the play that was being shown was Macbeth.
You mean it wasn't Our Town?
No, it was Macbeth.
Okay.
In St. Paul, Minnesota in 1970, an actor named George Ostrowska was playing Macbeth and dropped dead of a heart attack during the first scene of Act 2. Then in 1988, Bulgarian singer and translator Bancho Benchevsky committed suicide during a nationally broadcast matinee of Verdi's opera of Macbeth.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he threw himself backwards over a balcony railing. And this happened at the New York's Metropolitan Opera House. Could you imagine being in the audience for that, or just being a part of the cast, or just being there for that? I mean, it's so haunting. Oh my God.
Yeah.
In 1988 as well, the Broadway production, starring Glenda Jackson and Christopher Plummer, apparently went through 3 directors, 5 Macduffs, 6 cast changes, 6 stage managers, 2 set designers, 2 lighting designers, 26 bouts of the flu, torn ligaments, and groin injuries.
Okay, that's just was there just asbestos on the stage or something?
Right.
Like, what the fuck was going on?
I know. It's crazy. Now, David Bellwood, who is the access manager at Shakespeare's Globe, has an interesting story. And it goes like this. I was a dancer on tour in Riverdance, and a school friend of mine had died. To cheer me up, the fiddle player brought me a beautiful complete works of Shakespeare. We were flicking through it, and another friend said, I studied Macbeth at school. I told her it was bad luck to say Macbeth, and joked, I should make you go outside, turn around 3 times, and spit on the floor. In that night's show, 2 of the violinist's strings snapped spontaneously. One woman fell off stage. Another danced straight into a wall and knocked herself unconscious. I told my friend, never say it again.
Good golly.
In 1998, in an off-Broadway production starring Alec Baldwin and Angela Bassett, Alec Baldwin somehow sliced open the hand of his Macduff.
Alec Baldwin doesn't have the best track record, it
right.
seems.
All due respect to everyone.
Of course, obviously a horrible, horrible accident, but wow.
Yeah. Ari Aster, who is the writer and director of the film Hereditary, said that during filming, quote, Alex Wolff told me not to say the name of William Shakespeare's Scottish play out loud because of some superstitious theater legend. I smugly announced the name, and then one of our lights burst during the shooting of the following scene.
Smug. Smug. But a scary movie. Very scary.
A great movie. At the 94th Academy Awards, Chris Rock congratulated Denzel Washington on his performance in The Tragedy of Macbeth, and he said the name Macbeth aloud in the Dolby Theater. And not long after that, Chris Rock was slapped by Will Smith after making a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith.
We all remember that. Good golly. And I forgot that he literally had mentioned Macbeth just moments before, not long, but maybe not moments. I can't remember how long it was, but within a short amount of time got slapped.
Yeah.
That is so strange.
It is. It's crazy. So, what do you do if you say Macbeth in a theater?
What do we do?
What do you do? Here's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to leave the theater, spin around 3 times, spit, swear, sometimes even recite a passage of a different Shakespeare play, and then knock on the theater door to be let back in.
Oh, kind of like a vampire.
Kind of like a vampire.
Need to be invited back in.
Now, I think it would be apropos to read a portion of one of the most famous parts of Macbeth.
We are ready to hear it, Maureen.
And this is the 3 witches again, and I'm just reading all of them, but that's okay. Here is an abbreviated portion of Act 4, Scene 1. Thrice the brindled cat hath mewed, thrice and once the hedge pig whined. Harpier cries, 'tis time, 'tis time. Round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw. Toad that under cold stone, days and nights has 31. Sweltered venom, sleeping got, boil thy first in the charmed pot. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
Ooh, sends a chill down your spine.
It does.
Now, folks, a little inside baseball for you.
Yeah.
Creep Street had its own run-in with the Curse of Macbeth.
It really did.
True.
It really did.
So we recorded this episode on the Monday before the Friday it came out. I had to go do a show down in Pensacola, Florida, and I was editing it down there. I realized somehow, I don't know how I did it. I obviously did it somehow, but the last 10 minutes of the episode, somehow I deleted.
Yeah.
Don't know how. I mean,
Just-
I'm sure I did, but somehow I deleted it.
Just
And
gone.
It was literally right when Maureen starts talking about Charlton Heston. So we are literally recording this last few minutes on Thursday night before the episode comes out. And this is also happens to be where Maureen reads the portion from the play where the witches do their thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So yes, Creep Street, we had our own little bump, little run-in.
Yeah.
But very interesting. So yeah, this last few minutes we had to record on the night before the episode
Last
came out.
minute, really going for it, but I think it worked out okay.
I think it's going to be very good. I'm excited to release this episode.
Yes, I am excited too. I hope you all enjoyed this spooky, scary, interesting theater nerd version of Creep Street podcast.
I'm cooking up something weird for next week.
Oh,
Something
okay.
freaky.
Interesting. This episode was suggested by the one, the only, the beautiful, the maternal, the fertile, the hilarious, the silly, the intelligent, the wonderful Rebecca Singer.
Yes. Big shout out to Rebecca and her husband Leor and their sweet little baby Eve.
Yes, and also their sweet little fur baby, Lola.
Oh, that's right, little Lola.
You gotta give Lola a shout out.
Well, I got a list of wicked names I wouldn't mind coming my way.
Okay.
Folks, give it up for our top-tier Patreon subscribers. Of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face Via Lungfist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the Oh So Suave Sean Richardson, the British Bonebreaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Sir of Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Vuren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, the Rapscallion Ryan Crum, the Beast Benjamin Huang, the Devilish Chris Doucette, the Psycho Sam, the Electric Emily Zhang, the Ghoulish Good Hankum, the Renegade Corey Ramos, the Crazed Carlos, and the antagonist Andrew Park.
Yes, thank you so much to all of our top tier Patreon subscribers. We are so grateful for you, and thank you for doing all that you do. A big thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers, all tiers, and a big thank you to all of you for listening.
Yes, of course, like, rate, subscribe, give us a 5 stars or a thumbs up on whatever outlet you listen to us on, and of course go to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast for all sorts of extra goodies. Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
This is Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.